Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday Citizen Council live stream. I'm Chris Castleman. We've got a special show for you today. I have with me governor candidate Danielle Bethell. How's it going, Danielle?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate it. Pretty cool that you're doing this. I love getting to know candidates and getting to highlight what they're about in a less formal setting than a debate stage, and
Yeah.
I've got a couple people that are going to come on and ask you questions. So yeah, how's
Okay,
it
well, I
going?
look forward to it. Good. It's a beautiful day in Oregon, up in my neck of the woods.
Yeah, it's been nice here. We had rain a couple days ago, but man, there was like 3 or 4 weeks there, January, February, that were like a nice early spring. So,
Yeah, daffodils are blooming.
yeah, well, that's the problem. Everything's gonna start growing. I have a little garden, pretty small garden, but it's like everything's sprouting, and it's like, man, if we get a frost, that stuff is toast. Especially the buds
Yeah,
on the
that's
trees
right.
too, like the fruit trees. So
Yeah,
we'll see. It's not in our hands.
yeah.
Well, my first question for you is your Wi-Fi working? Because last time we had a
Yeah,
connection issue. And, all right. It seems to be doing
yeah,
a lot
it's
better.
working. We did a little bit of troubleshooting right before we popped on, and thank God for Apple Hotspot.
There you go.
Yeah.
Very cool. I thought we'd start with like an easy one to kind of help people understand, like what is something like that the governor can do to fix and help Oregon versus like stuff it can't. Like that's a big problem every time we talk with candidates. Like in any race, they'll talk about stuff that they actually can't fix, and I know you know the difference.
Yeah.
So giving you the opportunity to kind of just explain that for people before they start asking questions in the comment that they might not be able to
Yeah,
answer.
that's a
So
great question. Thank you for asking it. So the governor cannot raise taxes on her own. Uh, can't pass like make laws. There's a lot of power in the governor's office, but the biggest power the governor has is what I call the bully pulpit, and the ability to create, plan, strategize the future of Oregon. I've heard actually from two of my primary opponents, separately but in the same space, them make a commitment to the public on something that they legally cannot do. For example, the governor cannot lower your property taxes. The governor cannot lower your income taxes. Any tax system is only authority of the legislature or the citizens. So it either has to go to the vote of the people or 2/3 vote in the legislature. And I find it interesting to me, like you, when a candidate will come on and be like, I'm going to, and then enter some kind of a tax reform or reduction in the cost of living in the state. The state of Oregon has 87 state agencies that the governor oversees. There are several other state agencies that have elected officials that are over them, like the Secretary of State's office, the Treasurer's office, the Labor Commissioner, things like that. Within those 87 agencies, the governor is responsible for adhering all state and federal laws and making sure that those agencies live within the budgetary authority they are given by the legislature. And the biggest power the governor holds in that space is proper efficiencies and planning of resources. The governor has the ability to reduce the cost of government, which then would be a benefit to the people of Oregon, because it would lower the cost of our living or how much we need to be taxed. But that's not the same as lowering your taxes. There's two separate pieces to that. I think it's really important that we elect a candidate that can come into the governor's office that understands the authorities and understands the systems and can manipulate those systems like really strategically from day one.
no, you make a good point. Like just because you can't control property tax doesn't mean you can't effectively use those funds to maximize the impact of the money we're already giving the government. So that's a very good distinction. I appreciate it. I mean, yeah, like further down
Yeah.
that path, like what are some things? Like, would you be interested in an Oregon version of Doge? Are you familiar with Doge, the Elon Musk thing?
I'm very, very interested in that. Anybody that wants to have more efficiency in Oregon government should be interested in a concept of Doge, because it's too much for one person to handle on their own. And with today's technology, there's opportunities that we haven't captured or even know about yet that can help the governor and the team that the governor builds in every single agency. Today, I spoke earlier up in the Portland area to a group who asked me if I would be interested in auditing every state agency. The answer is yes. But the concept of an audit is very time intensive and very expensive. And that is actually the authority of the Secretary of State. Even though the governor can assert an audit needs to happen, that you have to work with the Secretary of State because that's the legal entity that does audits. What I would like to do is build a team of experts by department and be able to like really go through with scrutiny to understand the money is coming in and the money is going out in comparison to the mission of the organization, the scope creep that exists in every single state agency, and be able to apply dollars to outcomes with real transparency. And through that process, we'll just naturally see a reduction in overhead systems.
Yeah, I also have this
Is my
conversation
internet
around here.
okay?
Hey, no, it's great. It's good. You're good. Your video does
Okay.
cut out a few times, but your audio is totally fine. So,
Okay.
they talk about
Okay.
audits all the time in government, and around here, they'll oh, we're audited all the time. If we bring up Doge or efficiency or anything, they're like, we are audited all the time. We're mandated for these audits, and I always have to point out it's a process audit. It's essentially making sure you're using the right Excel spreadsheet. Like if you go on a business trip or whatever, political trip for what you're supposed to be doing, is it categorized under travel or whatever, right? Does it come out of the right budget? There's no efficiency audit. There's no audits looking at the
And
exact,
it can be, though.
is this important? Is this necessary? Those are different types of audits. So go ahead. Sorry.
That's right. And it's okay. I'm a commissioner in Marion County, as you know, but maybe not others do. And the Board of Commissioners every year in our audit process. So we statutorily have to have our entire financial system audited. But when we meet with our auditors every year, we ask them really hard questions. And what people don't know is that at the back of an audit, in the audit book, if you will, there's a list of details that help people look for those efficiencies. And it's not something that's introduced usually in the process to the elected body, because it's a procedural process, as you described. But if you're an outcome driven leader, you plug in different systems. So we do a review of every one of our agency programs in a series. So not every single year do we audit every single program of our county, but in a cycle we do an audit. And then we do outside audits. So recently we sanctioned an audit against our clerk's office. And the reason we did that is because we have to pay a lot of general fund money in Marion County because they don't generate enough fee for service to execute elections or the title recording process. And we want to make sure that we're being as most efficient, safe, and secure with our elections as possible. And so we hired an outside firm through an RFP process to audit that. Last year, what year is it?
We're losing you a bit here, Danielle. Your connection's cutting out.
I know, sorry.
Unfortunately.
I know.
I can
It
hear
went
you
away
now
and now I'm back. Can you hear me?
All right. Yes.
Okay.
It was just the past 30 seconds. Oh, let's try again.
Those
All
are
right. I should have hold music, elevator hold music on standby. Oh, there he is. She's back.
I know, I'm sorry.
You're
I
good,
feel
you're
like
good.
saying, welcome to rural Oregon, where broadband doesn't exist.
There you go. We'll send you a Starlink. Get you a hook.
I actually have considered getting Starlink.
If you have enough space in the sky, you can do it. I live in a pretty heavily forested area, and it's tough to find that much sky.
Yeah.
where I'm at. So,
Well, I have a lot of sky. I can see a lot of stars.
all right. Well, we'll work on that for you. Maybe it'll be a fundraiser. Get Danielle a Starlink
Wait,
fundraiser.
yeah, I'll have to
Let
report it.
me. There you go. I've got a couple people online here in the green room waiting to ask you questions, so I don't want to take up
Okay.
too much of their time, and I'll bring them on one at a time so they can ask you some
Okay.
questions. So
Okay.
let's go with Amy. She's actually a new member on our team. She just helped us out. I do a lot of conservative events in the area. I'm vice chair of our Republican Party, and she's been really really helpful. So Amy, how's it going? Oh,
Okay.
you're on mute.
Sorry. Good. How are you guys?
Doing good.
Good. How are
Yeah.
you?
You're whenever you're ready, Amy. It's all you. Sorry. Oh, you're on mute again. Here, can I unmute you? Oh, it's gonna. There you go.
Are we there? Okay.
Yes.
Better.
There.
Perfect.
Hi.
Okay. Hi. My question for you is, what is one thing our state government is doing wrong, and what would you do to fix it?
Just one thing. Okay. Let's see. Well, I'll tell you, I just came out of the Oregon legislature a little while ago testifying on a new policy around civil commitment. One of the biggest areas of failure in Oregon is our behavioral health system of care. In any community, you can see that we have people failing out in homelessness, drug addiction, mental health crisis. And we need to be able to build a better system. Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, Danielle. She might be having issues on her end.
I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Oh no.
Okay. That's okay. Hold on. I'm going to come right back.
Okay.
I'm going to go on my phone and come back into this with data.
All right.
I have the link.
I'll chat with
So
you.
let me back in, Chris.
All right.
One
Can you hear
second.
me fine, Amy?
Sorry.
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Yep. All right.
Okay, cool.
We'll give Danielle a minute here to get her phone back working again. But
Sounds good.
thanks for coming on. Brandy, if you can hear me, you're in the green room too. Whenever you're ready, we can bring you on as well. So, and for everybody online who's watching and putting questions in the comments, I will get to them. So don't worry. I'm reading them and kind of putting some aside. I just have a couple people who are like online right now waiting, and we're going to get them some answers for their questions, and then I'll go through the online comments. But all right, we got Danielle back.
Okay, I just look a little smaller. Maybe I look bigger. Can you hear me?
Yeah, here, I'll move back so our heads are all the same size. There you go.
I thought, okay, well, maybe if I go to my phone, it'll be better. So hopefully it will be. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, you're good. Do you remember the question?
Okay, so I do, yeah. What's one thing that's wrong with Oregon, and how would I fix it?
Yes.
Okay, so the one big thing that I, off the top of my head, because I've been working on it all day, is the behavioral health system of care. Earlier today, I testified in the Judiciary House Committee on a civil commitment bill that I've been working on as a county commissioner for 5 years. It's House Bill 4106 for anybody that wants to look it up. I think you should. I believe that just fundamentally, Oregon has never been a state that's planned anything. It's always reactionary. It's always been like a leader has come into the legislature or the governor's office and they've said, oh, I can do this or that. But they've never looked at the entire system and said, boy, I don't like this. I wonder why it doesn't work. I wonder what's wrong with the system. And we need to be able to have a system that's actually planned and functional and transparent and works for all the components of the acuity of care that we have in Oregon. So one of the things that I'm working on right now out of the gate, and I will do very aggressively as the governor, is make sure our civil commitment process in Oregon is adequate, accessible, and present. I can talk about that all day. It's probably a body of policy that would bore a lot of people. But right now, just as an easy sidebar, in 2025, we facilitated and passed House Bill 2005, which was a bill that lowered the bar for civil commitment to help people get access to mental health treatment. But what the bill doesn't do is help with the transportation component. And what a lot of Oregonians think is that, like, well, if I have a person who's in crisis with their mental illness, the system will just figure it out. Meaning there's either it's the healthcare system or it's a familial system with the courts. Well, even in Oregon right now under our current law, if a court order is issued for somebody to be civil committed, there's no way to transport them unless they go on their own. And I don't know if you know this, but people who are in like a serious mental health crisis traditionally don't have the ability, the cognitive ability to make that decision. And so they resist transport. And we don't have anybody in the behavioral health system to do that transportation. So historically, we've relied on law enforcement. Well, law enforcement will not transport on a civil warrant because of use of force law. They will get sued by the Trial Lawyers Association. So when you call a police officer into a mental health crisis, they typically enter and try to de-escalate, but then they leave because they will be sued by trial lawyers if they engage and somebody doesn't like the way they engaged. So the bill that was presented today is a bill that I have been working on a bipartisan approach to allow law enforcement to transport on civil commitment orders with a reduced liability threshold so they can do that job.
Yeah, that's a whole can
Did
of
you hear
worms,
all that?
whole situation. I did. Yes, I got you. And Amy's still having
Okay,
issue
okay.
with her phone.
All right,
I'm
good.
not sure why she couldn't, but I will make sure she gets the recording of your answer, so she will get her answer. And
Okay.
her daughter is actually playing volleyball. She was going to be on and ask you a question, and she recorded it for me. But I'll bring her. I'll have her recording play a little later because again, I've got some people here waiting.
Okay.
I'm going to bring Rob Taylor. I think he was at the event you came.
Oh, yay!
A brew pub.
I know, Rob.
But an interesting question for you then. But all right, I'll bring him on the stage and let him ask his question. Welcome, Rob.
Hi, Danielle.
Okay.
Did you hear me? I said hi, Danielle.
Yep, we can hear you, Rob.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
I am doing well, and it's good to see you. I've got a simple question.
Nice to see you.
They have been pumping a lot of money into economic development, and a lot of that money is coming here, and they're building public housing on property that doesn't pay taxes, and we also have to subsidize the housing itself. And it's destroying the whole makeup of rural Oregon by having a lot of these new public housing coming out here. Is there anything you think is wrong with that? And do you think there's something that should be done about it to keep what I would call wasting money on people who really can't use housing, because some of the housing is going to go to people who are drug addled, who are mental, who are going to destroy these properties. It becomes public housing. So what would you do about that?
Yeah, so I'm not sure that I don't know that economic development is the lane per se, but I do know that are you getting that feedback or is that just me?
It was Rob's.
Okay, maybe it's gone.
So you're good.
Okay. So in Oregon right now, the Oregon legislature has allocated a significant amount of money via the governor's request into housing systems of care. It's going through the Oregon Housing and Community Services Department, which is obviously it does housing. When Governor Kotek came into office, in her 2023 executive order, she allocated a significant amount of money to housing for specific, what they call housing first systems of care. And there was 3 specific models that she wanted funded to help with 2 separate things. 1, what they call the housing crisis by not having enough housing stock, and 2, addressing the homelessness issue through their housing first model. Both of the policy bodies that she worked on, this is not legislative, this is not law, it's policy that can be easily changed by executive order, and I will change it if I am elected, requires these dollars to be invested in communities that have an 80% area median income or below. In the communities that you live in, you have a large population, you have a large veteran population, and that puts you in a classification of that 80% or below, which means it's prime opportunity for developers to get these state funds to come down there and buy up this land and build these units. The problem with the units to me isn't so much that they're being built, it's that they are allowing people to come in on a requirement in their what I call the right to fail philosophy. The policy literally says if you're a developer and you take this money from the state, you are not allowed to require anybody who has a need of service to access service, meaning you cannot connect them to services. You cannot say you must choose sobriety to receive subsidized housing. You must not require them to enter into behavioral health supports. That's wrong. No taxpayer wants to just light money on fire and see it burn into the atmosphere. We all want accountability of our dollars, and we want accountability with compassion. I haven't yet talked to an Oregonian that says they want people to fail out on the streets. They want these individuals to be properly supported through a system of care that provides accountability, transparency, and all of that with compassion. And it's done with policy, not law. So I'm going to undo what OHCS is doing. And in fact, when that is undone, we would be in alignment then with the federal rules through the HUD administration, excuse me, and it would allow us to get more federal dollars, which helps locally essentially subsidize funds differently. So we're not using so much tax dollars. We can shift those line items and use our statewide dollars for different systems. The other thing in that category that's frustrating to me when they bring in subsidized housing, which is what we're talking about, the local area government basically is pressed for how they're going to bring their systems online. So for every single house you bring online or every apartment you build, you have to have all the utilities that come with it, whether it's roads and schools or medical systems, but mostly we're talking about water systems and sewer systems and roads that the local municipalities are responsible for. And when you bring in subsidized housing, they usually are not paying full tax rate, which means the city isn't getting enough resources to be able to maintain their services long term, and it raises the cost on everybody else in the area. In Marion County, as a commissioner, I worked with several projects that have come online, and we require those developers to pay what's called a PILT, a payment in lieu of taxes, and they must work with any jurisdiction they want to develop in and have that city tell them what it's going to cost every year for them to pay for, at the very minimum, the utility connections of the systems that they're accessing. It's a compromise to keep the cost of the housing down, still affordable and subsidized, but it doesn't harm the local city or county that they're building in. Does that answer your question?
That answered my question. Thank you very much. You're a very smart lady, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks,
Take
Rob.
care.
Very cool. That one worked out with the audio and video.
Yeah.
All right. Let me see who's on standby. Actually, I'm going to grab a question from online. Let's pick a good one. Here's a random one. Linda says, what's your stance on the Oregon China Council?
Linda, I don't know what the Oregon China Council is. What's the Oregon China Council? And I'll tell you my position. Do you know what it is, Chris?
I don't. I have heard of it. I believe there's some sort of like legislative committee working with China or something that's just what I've heard, but I have not had time to research it. So I figured maybe
I do know. No, that's fine. It's a great question, and I'm happy to learn about it. I did learn on Monday because there was a convening of commissioners from across the state that several rural and frontier county commissioners were invited to meet with the Chinese consulate. And maybe that's a part of it, but because Marion County, by and large, isn't considered rural, I wasn't invited to it, so I haven't had exposure to it yet.
Yeah,
but I'll look it up for sure. It kind of sounds scary
already. It does. But yeah, Danielle is a county commissioner. She's on the executive side of things, so I think that's legislative. and that's a totally different ball game. That's one of the reasons why you're running for governor, because it's the same lane. People who switch from the legislature sometimes have an issue.
right.
So, did you want to touch on that or move on to another question?
Well, I know you hit the nail on the head. For far too long, Oregonians have elected legislators to be the governor, and it's not the same job at all. Legislators, by and large, don't run government. They make policy and they pontificate on ideas and hopes. But my job as a county commissioner is to effectively run the fifth largest economy in the state, and that's Marion County. I've been doing it for 6 years, and I would say pretty effectively, considering I was reelected without an opponent in a partisan seat.
Hey, that's pretty good. Congrats.
Yeah.
All right,
Thanks.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
bring
it was an
on-
uphill battle, but I got it done.
I'm going to bring on Brandy Martindale here in just a second. And then Jeremy, by the way, you're on deck, so be prepared. Hey, Brandy, how's it going?
Hey, everybody. It's going good. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Yeah, nice to see you again, Danielle.
Hi. You
Okay,
too. When you said
so-
your name, I knew exactly who was going to come on screen.
Yeah. So I've got a question for you. It has a little bit to do with the Doge that you had mentioned before. I am really interested in digging through our state's finances. You had mentioned it's going to be very expensive. I anticipate that not just expensive, there is going to be enormous pushback. I have some experience working with a person in government as a client who went through the process of auditing a department. It was outside of Oregon. It was in another state. But when he started to ask for accountability, proper documentation, he was personally threatened. Like, they stalked him. And so I'm wondering, when you're looking at this nebulous mess, it's going to require way more than audits. It's going to require, in my opinion, some whistleblower support. Do you foresee a system that needs to be put in place, if you were to design that, a system that would support whistleblower type activity, accountability in financial kind of accounting and transparency? Tell me about what that system might look like if you got to design it.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. So essentially, well, I believe everything you said is probably very accurate. I am hearing from state agency employees right now who will reach out to me and ask if I can confidentially listen to them about issues that they're facing and situations that they know about inside different departments. I will tell you that in Marion County right now, just as a very simple system, we have a paid for system, which is basically a tattletale hotline that you can either call into or you can subscribe online and go in and you can tattle on anybody in Marion County, whether that's about a budget issue or personnel issue, or you're just mad. Maybe you're mad at the commissioners and you don't want to confront us. You can go in 100% anonymously as an employee, because it's restricted to employees of our county, and be able to report the information you want to be reviewed. And then that goes through a process that makes its way to the Board of Commissioners. And it's a kind of like an apples for apples. The complaint goes in, it's reviewed by the pending department head, but it's never held back. We get to review that information with the department head and then take decisive action if that's what we decide to do. That's a very easy system to stand up on day one. There are all kinds of private vendors across the world that do that work. And I know of one in Oregon because I have paid them for the last 3 years as a commissioner to do that work in my county. That's one thing I'm going to do. The second thing I'm going to do is incentivize the truth. People get to keep their jobs if they're transparent when they are asked questions and they don't provide any barriers. At the end of the day, it's the department head's job to know where the challenges lie. And it's true that every single agency head, every single department tries to kind of protect their territory. And so they tell you what they want you to know. And that's where we've gone wrong for far too long in a governor that's never been a government director and or an executive. When you bring a legislative person into an executive position, they don't understand the language. They don't know how to read the budget. They don't know what key performance measures look like and how, excuse me, how to dissect them with the language present for those particular agencies. So I have an advantage as a candidate because I do this work. And I look forward, frankly, to the opportunity to being in these agencies and reviewing their budgets and having conversations and offering them the opportunity to tell on themselves. Because I'm a firm believer that honesty creates solutions. And if I don't know there's a problem, I can't help them. But people are fear responsive in government in Oregon, and they often don't tell you what's going wrong because they're afraid they're going to be in trouble. But for me, and I've proven this, anybody can go Google this for any public meeting where I've written a check to a contractor or delivered an agency budget. We encourage people to come in and tell us how things are going, especially the things that are going bad, because my job is to be a solution creator, not just somebody that sits in the job and pats everybody on the head. So does that answer your question?
It does. Yeah. Thank you. You actually got me a couple ideas that, because if I happen to win my commissioner's seat, which I'm expecting to, I am interested in bringing some
Perfect.
transparency and some, like you mentioned, some whistleblower protections here in Coos County. Not that I think we have a lot of whistleblowing that needs to happen, but just creating that transparency and that kind of, collaborative, supportive environment where people can come
Yep.
forward with issues to be discussed. Yeah. So you gave me some food for thought. Thank you.
Yeah, well, when you win, call me and I'll show you what we're doing in Marion County.
Yeah, will do. You bet on it.
Thank you.
There you go. Thanks, Brandy. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go to a question from the comments online. And by the way, Linda, if you're still watching, and if you want to put some information about the China Council thing you mentioned in the comments, we could touch back up on that towards the end. So here's a question from MJ. She says, do you have a plan to retain small businesses in Oregon as those owners face rising costs like the cat tax, PLO, etc.?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different regulations that are braided together that are causing small businesses to suffer, frankly. One of the things that I have access to is knowledge of being a small business owner. I own a small business right now. I operate one with my husband. Excuse me. Before I was a commissioner, I ran a chamber of commerce. So I've had a front row seat to the escalation of challenges that small businesses in rural and urban areas are facing in Oregon. So one of the things that I'm going to do very aggressively is bring a group together of businesses of different industry and size and let them tell me exactly what they want done differently. I think it's better to ask people where the pain points are than to guess. And I've already talked to a lot of small business owners about the challenges that they face, and the cat tax is at the top of mind for most businesses. But there's other different types of regulation, like ag overtime, as an example, or these different environmental factors that they push on agriculture agencies. So I don't remember what it's called at the moment, but there's a policy in place that requires farmers to, offer shade and water and these different types of breaks during their production seasons that are expensive and necessary, but they were not thoughtful in their planning. All of those are passed through state law that in some capacity can be halted by executive order. But by and large, you cannot pause a law on an executive order forever. So you have to be able to be creative with reviewing those issues and then introducing legislation and getting it passed to be able to roll things back. So I'm going to have to walk and chew gum at the same time, and probably, frankly, I'm probably going to have to be running and chewing gum at the same time, because being elected this year in November takes me right into the long session in 2027, where a lot of opportunity will exist to be able to roll back legislation that has been harmful on small businesses. the cat tax being one of them, ag overtime being another one. There's a particular health policy that it's like a retirement policy that's forced on small businesses that they have to pay into, that's causing a lot of regulation and heartache that needs to be reviewed. I mean, there's just so many of them. But there's also a lot of industry area that I don't have access to yet that want to have a voice at that table. So when I get elected, within the first 10 days, I will be standing up a conversation, like I said, with a variety of different industry partners of all sizes. So they can just give me that list and we can race right into either executive order action or policy rulemaking for agencies and also legislative drafting to roll back law.
Well, I hope that happens. I hope 2027 is the year they start finally working for small business in the legislature and get some progress on fixing things. That would be nice. And it would be nice to have a partner in the governor's seat to do it. So MJ says, count me in. She was listening to your answer.
Great, so, you're hired.
All right, now I'm going to go to Jeremy. Hope you're ready. How's it going, Jeremy?
It's good. Chris, thanks for having me on. And Danielle, thanks for being here. My question is about education.
Okay.
Oregon's public schools have some of the lowest performance rankings in the country, with ongoing issues in test scores, attendance, graduation rates. What concrete changes would you champion to improve K through 12 education? And how would you hold districts and the state accountable for results?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. So there's a lot of things that I'm going to do for education in the state. But the first thing I'm going to do is maneuver back to the opportunity to return education to educators. So in Oregon right now, the superintendent of education is the governor. And I don't know if you know this, but we have never had an educator as the governor, like a licensed educator. They've been judges and nonprofit leaders, but never an educator. I want to go back to having an elected superintendent of education, somebody that's an expert in shaping and growing the minds of young people in Oregon. That's the first thing. That'll take a little bit of time because it takes legislative action. But right out the gate, I'm going to walk right into the Oregon Board of Education, and we're going to get rid of a lot of people that are on that board. And we're going to go back through a process of returning classrooms to academics and focusing on education versus the other myriad of things that have been forced on teachers in the classroom. I'm also going to just return the idea of education back to the communities. Right now, everything is driven through the Oregon Board of Education, through the Oregon Department of Education, down into school districts. While it's important that funding and allocation of resources and the formula is done at the state level and basic liable policy is designed at the state level, every single district should be driving their own outcomes based on the cultural climate of their communities and local level. Education should be driven from the bottom up, not the top down. Superintendents are really good at their jobs because at one point or another, they were likely in a classroom. The problem that they exist under right now is, one, they've got a lot of union overreach, telling them that they want more money and more this and more that, smaller class sizes, different types of behavioral health supports. It's like a one-size-fits-all island in a classroom or in a school, and we need to dissect that and just frankly go back to academics. I'm going to require counties and school districts to work together in the systems that they're experts in. I'll use my county as an example because it's a pain point for me. A lot of people know this, but maybe you don't. I was on the Salem-Keizer School Board for a cycle, and I had the opportunity to have a front row seat to how the state pushes down their ideology and pushes down their expectations into classrooms in every community in this state without having any idea what those communities' needs are or what the academic challenges are based on whether a student's navigating policy or whether they're new to this country or whatever. I want to make sure that we're just running our classrooms on a comprehensive basis and allowing counties who are statutorily required to do behavioral health, mental health care, partner with school districts. Salem uses a significant amount of their local resources, Salem-Keizer School District, that is, on mental health treatment and not classroom care. And that is
not okay by me. It's taking money out of teachers' pockets. Like right now, they're facing a serious shortfall, and they're going to have to cut 68 positions this next school year because of a revenue issue. But they're spending a significant amount of resources on behavioral health that they could be spending on teachers. I want to make sure those systems are shored up and collaborative, not in competition with one another. And I don't know if you know this either, but I'll just add it to the conversation. Oregon higher education institutions are no longer teaching.
Oh no, we lost her.
Oh no.
You said, we heard you say Oregon higher education institutions are no longer teaching.
Okay.
That was the last thing we heard.
Yeah. They're no longer teaching comprehension and development. They're mostly teaching how to make a lesson plan, or how to manage your classroom, or how to be successful in your community. We need to force back into the expectation that when we have people in college to be teachers, to be educators, that they're getting the real live experience of how a brain develops and how to interact with a child in different settings for them to be active learners. And teach those teachers to be experts in education and academics, not, in my opinion, experts in how to manage a classroom.
Very
Okay.
cool.
Well, thank you so
your
much.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate it. Danielle, your screen is black for some reason.
I can see
I don't
you.
know. Bummer. I don't know if you wanted to.
Can you see me now? I don't know. Can you hear me?
No, I can hear you totally fine, but the screen went black. Like right when it cut out, it went black, and then it hasn't come back. But do you want to try and
I don't see me.
going out and coming back in again?
Yep. I'll do that. I'll be right back. No, it's fine. I understand. I'll be right back.
All right. While we wait for Danielle to come back and rejoin us, I'm going through the comments. Where do we have? Shelly was asking similar question about education. Says, oh, I think we have Danielle, but her screen is still black. Hey, Danielle, can you hear me? Oh no, we lost our audio too. Danielle, can you hear me? Wait. Oh, I pulled up her old screen. That's weird. Sorry, guys. Technical difficulties. There you are.
Can you see
Now
me?
I can hear you and see you.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes. So along with education, Shelly had asked.
But I can't hear
said,
you.
Oh no.
Hold on. I can't hear you at all.
Can you read the question and answer it?
I know. I'm pushing it.
Oh no.
Let's see.
Why can't she hear me? Oh, bummer. Danielle, if you can hear me, just try and rejoin. I'm going to send her a text. Thanks everybody for staying with us. Anyway, so Shelly was asking about education. Oh, here comes Danielle again. There we go. I can see you and hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you have the patience of a saint. I'm so sorry.
You're good. Your whole thing's coming in the best it has all night. So
Okay.
Whatever you did this time, keep it.
I didn't do anything. I just went out and came back.
Yeah, somebody's playing tricks on you. You've got
That's my life.
some competitors, it seems.
Yeah.
Anyways, Shelly is asking that our shameless governor is bragging about the 80% graduation rate, but she hasn't continued to lower the graduation, but hasn't she continued to lower the graduation standards? Sorry, I read that Are you planning to raise those standards? Also, what are your thoughts about bringing back trade skills to the classrooms?
Yeah, great question, Shelley. So, yes, I'm going to raise back academic standards. In fact, there's a model out of the state of Mississippi that I think every Oregonian should go look at it. I think it was 7 years ago, Mississippi was in the top or the bottom 5 in academics in the country. And now they're in the top 5 in the nation. They implemented a program that allows youth to really be curious and expand their creativity and access to academics. They they basically just applied what I grew up with, which is you went to school and you had a standard day of math, reading, writing, language arts, history, science. And then they wove into that things that kept kids interested. So I grew up here in Oregon. I'm a 5th generation Oregonian, and I went to school predominantly in Salem. And we had access to some programs in our community back in the day, but not a ton. I mean, I graduated high school in 1997. So if that gives you an indication of how old I am. We had like FFA and different agriculture programs because, believe it or not, Salem is a pretty big agriculture community. But we also had other like welding, fabrication. I'm trying to think of all the classes that I thought were cool and scary. Auto shop. That's what comes to mind. We don't have those programs by and large now because it's not considered a priority to fund, which is kind of interesting to me considering we need more people in the trades. So to answer your question, yes, I'm going to bring back trades, but I'm going to do that through what I think is an immersion of career technical education systems, not just one-off like what we would consider an elective course. I think kids today need, or any kid ever needs, exposure to a lot of different areas. When I was in the 7th grade, as an example, I had home economics and I had to learn to sew and I had to learn to cook and I had to be in the wood shop. And while they were like what we called a academic wheel, like every 6 weeks I changed in my curriculum to the different programs, it taught me a foundation for a lot of things that, one, were fun, and two, I still know how to use a candy thermometer thanks to my 7th grade teacher from my cooking class. So there's a lot of ways that you can integrate different skills into schools that allow kids to have one kind of a brain break is what I call it, when they are more interested through the fun access of academics versus just the mental load of the overall basic structure of education. And I'm not an educator, so I'm not an expert on exactly what we have to do to get the standards back up. But I do have some very good friends who I've worked with for a long time that have pressed this system in Oregon very publicly, saying, hey, here's the science, here's the evidence, here's what we need to do. And that body of people is who I'm going to trust to come in and reorganize the way we do education in Oregon.
I love hearing that. Yeah, no, and all the talk about home ec and shop. It was like for kids that school is really tough and like boring because they're not into the English and the history and the math. Not everybody is. Those classes are not only good for them in the path that they're going in life, but it's like it teaches them that like not all adults suck. Because like you could really end up hating your teachers if you're just force-fed algebra all the time. And it gives them the opportunity to realize that like, you know, some people care about your development and you form some relationships and some bonds with like your authority figures, which is a good thing sometimes. So.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, speaking of kids, Amy's daughter, who has volleyball practice right now and couldn't make it, she filmed a quick little video for you and has a question. So hopefully this plays right.
Sophomore in North Bend High School. And my question is, if you're elected, what's one decision you plan to make that you think will have the biggest impact on our state's future?
That's a great question. One decision that I'll make that'll have an impact on our state's, I mean, honestly, it will be all about money. So one of the biggest things that I'm going to bring into the space of conversation with Oregonians is the way we're taxed. I don't believe that we have an adequate and fair and or balanced system of taxation in Oregon. I think it's burdensome for property owners, and I think it's burdensome for people who work a lot through the income tax.
I have openly talked about the fact that I think that Oregon is far behind the times of really looking at a comprehensive restructuring of our tax system. And that is going to be a very robust and difficult conversation to have, not just with Oregonians, but with other local elected governments. Most people know that counties are predominantly operated on property tax, and you have, in order to go to what's a consumption tax or a sales tax, my opinion is you have to get rid of one of the other. And which one that is, I'm not an economics major, I'm not an economist, so I don't have the exact answer for that. But I'm willing to have the conversation with Oregonians about what services we want, how we want to pay them, and what the source is that they feel we should generate that revenue from. And once we have that very big discussion, put the wheels in motion, which will take time to implement when you restructure an entire financial system of a government, even the size of ours.
Yeah, and we're not having those conversations right now. We're just being told how the money's going to get spent, what it's going to be spent on. We have a local issue the past couple weeks. They're having an LGBTQ prom, which in and of itself would be fine, but then they added on it's for all ages, so anyone can attend. And our local health department, Coos Health and Wellness, is sponsoring mocktails. Like there's going to be a mocktail bar there during the drag show, and it's paid for with our health department funds. And that's just like, that's too many layers of bizarre for me. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it sounds like my question to your public health department is, are these state dollars? Because the Oregon Health Authority actually has contracts for counties to apply for that deploys dollars for inclusivity. And it's like a whole bucket of money that OHA has set aside for like their equity agenda. And I imagine your county applied for that and they're deploying it in a space that OHA thinks is a great idea. I think that, I mean, I'm not from Coos County. I've been down there maybe 2 or 3 dozen times in my whole life. But if it's not by and large what your community is looking for, it might not be the best use of taxpayer dollars. And I can tell you that one of the things that frustrates me about a taxpayer and a county commissioner is the real missed opportunity to fund priorities, things that really, really matter as far as safety, livability, and sustainability and structure in our communities. I'm very frustrated with Oregon Health Authority on a daily basis, probably an hourly basis, because they live up on this moon, basically, like they know what the hell's going on in my community, and they couldn't be more further ignorant from what's going on in my community. And they prevent me from being really successful at my job because they allocate money into systems that are ridiculous. Frankly, it's my opinion that if you want to have a community gathering, your community should fund it. And there's ways to do that without taxpayer dollars.
And yep, that was exactly what we had brought up. We had a commissioner meeting where it was an agenda item, whether or not this should be funded. It ended up being, it was just $200 is what they're spending for these mocktails. And it just didn't seem like an unfundable amount from the community, right? Like people could crowdsource that money, $200, if that was what was important. It was about like alcohol prevention, I guess, like trying to give them alternatives.
Yep. So it's 100% public health dollars. Then prevention is a public health system and it comes from OHA. Counties do not generate revenue for public health. That is all in partnership with the state.
Yeah, no, I even read through the contract. It's in there and it's a thing, but it was just kind of bizarre that they would choose to pick something that they know is divisive, like know that is going to cause division in our community. There's going to be 2 sides to that issue and they're going to be really annoyed. So anyways, I don't want to talk more about it. It's driving me nuts. This past week's been crazy with that. But we had a comment online. Megan says she absolutely loves that you have an actual answer and a solution for every question.
I try.
She had a question earlier, I think I saw, but there it is. She says she would love to know what you would do about better drug enforcement for hard drugs and better law enforcement for criminals.
Yeah, so I
I love this question, and I'm going to try not to be super aggressive or excited about answering it. So I'm a believer that drug dealers get prison and drug users get treatment. It's that simple. I don't believe that in general, people who are drug addicts woke up one day and said they wanted to be a drug addict. In fact, I have lived experience. I've never been a drug addict and I've never used drugs, but I grew up in the space. And we can talk about the origin of why people end up being addicts another day. But Oregon is a very vulnerable state for criminals for a lot of reasons. And I was the champion commissioner as the Association of Oregon Counties president in 2024 that actually led the initiative through the Oregon legislature to pass House Bill 4002, which is the recriminalization of hard drugs in Oregon. And I can tell you that that piece of legislation was putting our toe in the water, not even stepping in the water, as to what we need to do in policy in this state to recriminalize the use of drugs and access to drugs. There are very clear pathways to do that work, very clear pathways to do that work. But the Oregon legislature has to legislate it. And you need to have a governor that's going to talk statewide on the bully pulpit with the bullhorn about why we should have accountability and safety in our communities and why we should hold criminals and drug dealers accountable. Oregon consistently underfunds just about every priority area of service, including community corrections. The Department of Corrections, which is where the state invests $8 billion statewide into the prison system and the reentry system, and then at each county level, the community corrections system, is woefully underfunded. That side is the reactive side, not the prevention side. At the local level, the prevention side exists where cities and counties fund enforcement. A fun fact, cities and counties are not legally required to fund enforcement. We do it because it's the backbone of public safety, and every major jurisdiction in this state cannot afford the number of officers we need to have to keep up with public safety at a person per capita in our communities. And there's a variety of reasons for that, PERS being one of them. The fact that we have these unions that are driving us out of jobs because they keep increasing the cost of a per person salary or benefit package in government spaces is on the edge of a failing cliff. Like, we're going to hit bankruptcy for a lot of systems in this state in the next decade. In fact, your county is one of them. And it's not just because trees aren't being cut. It's because there's an inefficiency and a lack of understanding from users in the system on how to balance a budget and how to pay for those services. So for me, I'm going to have the real hard conversation with legislators, and I'm going to hold them accountable in the public eye. And I'm going to work with local jurisdictions. There's over 240 cities in this state and 36 counties that all have a solution to their problems. And they just need a governor that understands what they're saying and can work together to find a plan to implement those systems of care.
Music to my ears. Ashley has a relative question. Will you consider defunding harm reduction programs like distributing drug use equipment in public parks and public spaces? What are your thoughts on that?
Emphatically, yes. In fact, that'll be a part of an executive order that I come in on like the very first week to do. We do not practice harm reduction in Marion County as a government. We do not write checks to any organization or any entity that does harm reduction because we believe it's harmful. And there's lots of evidence around it. We believe in meeting the person where they are. We believe that on day one, the original concept of harm reduction in the experts' eyes a decade ago was that they would approach a person essentially that would be like, let's say that they do cocaine. The harm reduction is suggesting that maybe they don't do cocaine and they reduce the type of drug that they're doing that's harmful. So maybe they should start smoking marijuana instead. I don't necessarily support that theory either, but it's very different than handing somebody a tinfoil piece and a piece of tinfoil rather, and a straw and saying, go make your own crack pipe. I'm very opposed to that. I think it is asinine that we in this state think that's a good idea. There's a much better way to approach somebody who has an addiction. And I think with accountability and some tough love, we can help them through that process. But I'm never going to be a leader that promotes access to doing drugs that kill people. Never.
All right. Megan says, thank you so much for helping push that bill and making hard drugs illegal again.
You're welcome.
Totally changing subjects. We have a question from Darlene says, would you bring back logging in Eastern Oregon? Like, is that something the governor could be a part
Yeah.
of?
Yeah, so I appreciate the question. And Eastern Oregon isn't actually the per capita biggest area where we should be harvesting trees. It's actually in the south part of the state. Coos County, Curry County, Tillamook, well, Tillamook's up north, but Douglas, Klamath. There's actually 17 timber counties in Oregon that all have a lot of opportunity to be logging. And I'm going to be a champion of bringing natural resource production back online. And the way you do that is by working in two situations that I'm already active in as a county commissioner. The first one is we need to get the federal government to enter into land stewardship agreements with counties who have massive amounts of federal timberland and let them log those lands. There has to be a plan for that because you have to have a place to send those logs, as we all know. And thankfully, the southwest part of the state has some mills still online, but they're not robust enough to be able to take on immediate production. The second thing is we need to be able to walk back the most extreme version of the habitat conservation plan ever thought up by mankind here in Oregon, thanks to the Oregon Board of Forestry, who I think are absolutely crazy. And I'm going to make sure that we get rid of the members of the Oregon Board of Forestry. And I'm pretty sure I wouldn't keep the Board of Forestry director that the governor just appointed from the state of Nevada. I don't think she's qualified. And I also think that she is a criminal, but there's that. I want right now the habitat conservation plan is sitting on a shelf with the federal administration being reviewed. And I'm very grateful that our current administration has paused that review and is going to push it back down, is what we're told, to the state to say, hey, this isn't working. Go back to the drawing board. You have to comply with the law, but you don't have to be more extreme than the law. And we need to work together to make sure that we can live comfortably within our natural resource system, which also includes habitat. So there's a way to go about it. And I have the exact people that can come in and do this work that have been doing it for a very long time. In fact, you all might know him. His name is Tim Freeman. He's a county commissioner in Douglas County. And he happens to be the chair of ONC lands for all 17 Oregon counties that have federal lands. And he's great at his job. And he's a former legislator as well. And he's very interested in helping Oregon get back on track with its natural resources, specifically around timber.
How cool would that be to have a governor that actually works with our current administration?
I don't know if you know this, but I married into a timber family.
Okay.
Yeah. I care about this.
You care about a lot of things, which is very cool. Ashley says, will you support refunding the Oregon Civilian Conservation Corps?
I don't know what that is. Ashley, tell me what it is.
I'm not totally familiar, but if it's like, I think that's where they do like kind of work programs. I don't know.
Is that like Job Corps? Like Job Corps?
I think so.
Okay, Ashley, tell me what that
Ashley,
is, and
tell
I'll
us more
answer your
about that.
questions. Yeah.
You know what's cool for people? They have high expectations all the time, and they don't know. They want to be like, man. They might be sitting there going, well, why doesn't she know? Like, she should know everything, right? And
I mean, I wish.
so cool that you're willing to admit, like, I just don't even know that. Like, some people would have answered that with the most BS answer and just to pretend like they know. And I appreciate that.
It just hurts my brain to like make something up because then I have to remember whatever I said, and I'm not very good at remembering things. I know what I know, and I can tell you that I'm like a sponge. So as soon as Ashley tells me what that is, I'll be like, oh, I'll remember that forever, and then I'll have an opinion on it. Then I'll know.
There you go. You'll know it for the next time.
Right.
All right. A local question for Coos County. Tracy says, what are your thoughts on the container shipping port in Coos County? I'm not sure if you know about that one.
So I have a very limited exposure to it. I don't know a lot of the cons to it, except for the environmental challenges that I've heard as far as like the dynamic of where it would go and the land use issues. But in general, I'm just going to kind of punt this. It feels like it's a good idea for economic development, but I don't understand the regulation or challenge that it poses to the community. So I think I'm coming down on March 14th for an activity in Coos County. And this might be an area that I will do my research on to understand better, to have the conversation when I'm down there. I actually know Melissa Cribbins really well. And I think she is her title director. Is she the port director or something?
Something like that. She's on the board. That's for sure. That's like organizing this.
She and I have been
coordinating a conversation so she can bring me up to speed on it. And I say that reluctantly, knowing that maybe she's not liked and maybe this is a hated project, but I have no like attachment to it because I don't understand it. And here's what I'll tell you just on its face. I believe every single community should be driving its own direction, and that the state should be coming behind them and providing them some type of investment and subsidy to be successful, but not control and dictate the direction they're going. So if the local community doesn't want this and there's a justifiable reason other than some feelings around like, I don't want it here, I think they should be heard. But if there's real concrete reasons like harm to the community or you know, whatever that looks like, the conversation should be had. But I also think that on the other side of that, sometimes communities have difficulty with progress. They want to get right in the way of progress because progress just eats them alive and destroys their communities and their culture. I'm the type of person that believes we have to make progress, but it should be planned progress. And planning means participation, and we should be doing it together.
Yeah, this one is a whole mixed bag. I've talked with a lot of people on it, and it's not really partisan. It's all over the place.
Okay.
I mean, the most partisan you could make it is like, yeah, the environmentalists on the left are definitely upset. Habitat destruction, things like that is their concern. And then on the right, you have more, it's actually more favorable on the right because they're like, hey, we need industry here, right? We need business and
Jobs.
progress. But the word progress is very scary to traditional conservatives. They want to keep things the way they are. So definitely all over the place around here anytime that topic's brought up. But maybe it would be like a great ballot initiative, right? Like put just an advisory question on the ballot to gauge at least what the voting population, which is not the whole population at all, but the voting population.
I think the question that has to be asked. So I think we have to ask voters, if not there, where, because we have to be able to have access to goods and services. And we, you know, a lot of the things that I think are coming online have to do with like environmental controls because of the governors that we've had in office that say we need to reduce fossil emissions and all the things around their climate ideology. And that means they want to reduce the number of cars and trucks on the road. So if we do that, then how do we get our goods? Okay, well, let's go to rail. If we go to rail, then we have to have ports. Where do we put the ports? Those, and you want to have ports in more than one location to reduce costs and have access. I'm involved in those conversations. I just don't know the whole dynamic around coups and that port. But I imagine it is very wild and there's a lot of feelings around it because it is hard when you introduce something new and big that could be harmful. I think overall it can come in and take over, and you want to avoid that. You want to be able to, I think, create immersion with structure that's a bit comfortable, but sometimes growth is uncomfortable, but it could be planned.
Yeah. Well, I think the way they brought it up to the public was tough. It was like they came with a decision already made, is what it seemed like, and it didn't seem like they really asked us like, what do we want? It was like, here's the plan, and this is what we're going to do. Now we need you to agree, and it's tough because like when in a group dynamic or like when you're trying to plan something, even like planning an event, it's hard. Like, do you open it up to like 30 people to plan some event, or do you kind of have an idea of what it needs to be and then you get volunteers to help you execute it? So like anyone who's ever been involved in something like that probably understands that it's a gamble either way. But Ashley says this is about the Job Corps. She said before Job Corps there was the CCC, and the CCC built the Mott Bridge on the North Umpqua River. I've done a lot of hiking and trail running and stuff, and usually, like the trails and things like that are built by the Job Corps and the CCC. I think that's
it. I mean, I'd have to research it to know what it is, but in general, I can tell you that as a county commissioner, we work with all kinds of organizations that do like trail restoration and watershed development and preservation. I think anybody that wants to come to the table and create a safe, clean, livable environment together and isn't extreme on one side or the other should be at the table. And I don't believe that it's entirely the state's job to fund particular systems or infrastructure systems. Like if there's a park in your backyard and it needs to be developed with a bridge, there's ways for your community to go after grant dollars to gain access to that, which is different than you know, or Business Oregon or somebody funding it, or I'm trying like Oregon Parks or whatever. I really believe in local control. I really believe that we are the kind of the champions of our destiny, and we have to figure out how to do that within our means and plan for it. And the only way to reduce state government is to expect it to be smaller and more nimble and have less handouts, which means local governments are going to have to really start up and be champions for themselves and build those plans. And the only way you can be successful is with community organizations, because in my community, we have several conservation groups kind of across all ideological scales. And they come in and meet with the commission all the time. And I have several parks, and right now we're rebuilding the Santiam Canyon from the 2020 fires. And we work in lockstep with them to deploy some of their mission and fund some of their mission through resources we have at the local level. And then we help them apply for grants to be successful. In fact, that we're going to be building a bridge up the canyon for a park very soon that they were awarded a federal grant for. So I'm not opposed to things like that.
You mentioned handouts, and Laura had a question. She says, would you be willing to make Oregon no longer a sanctuary state?
If that was in my power, I would have a very big conversation about it, but it's not offered to the governor to be a sweeping decision. What I fundamentally believe is that Oregonians should be the ones in charge of big policy. So back in the 80s, when the sanctuary law was established, it was not a vote of the people. They say that it was a vote of a bipartisan body in the legislature. And back in the 80s, it was a relationship that they had with the Reagan administration to navigate the farm worker population that we had in this state that's very robust in agriculture, as you know. The Reagan administration offered all kinds of amnesty to a lot of people who still live here in Oregon today under what we have as that previous sanctuary law and in a specific type of visa. What we live under today, I do not support at all. The law that was modified in 2021 to support criminals being in our community and us having to pay for their lives, I'm fundamentally against. I believe that if you come to this country and you want to live here peacefully, you should go through the process. But that process isn't perfect on the national level. The immigration system in America is slow, and that's probably the nicest way to talk about it. And people are impatient, and there's a lot of things happening in countries across the world that people are fleeing from. It's not my decision to be a dictator in that space. It would be my decision as a leader to design policy and a conversation and push it to voters with transparency and access for them to decide what they want. But I will tell you right now, Marion County is the only county in Oregon who has been served with administrative subpoenas from the Department of Justice federally, who has filed a lawsuit back against the federal government and against the Attorney General of Oregon and the Governor of Oregon on the current sanctuary law, because it puts us in a very desperate situation, because if we comply with the federal subpoenas, we're out of compliance with state law. And if we don't comply with those, then we're out of compliance with federal law. And that's an unacceptable space to be in. And in fact, I think the governor intended for that to happen when she was the Speaker of the House and promoted this policy through the legislature. So it's not an easy answer. It's not a one-off, yep, I would rip it away, because there are people here that live in our state that have been here for over 30 years, who are protected under the original law, who are here as Oregonians that have been challenged by the immigration system and have either been unsuccessful with getting their citizenship status, or maybe they couldn't afford it or whatever. And we need to have a partnership between our state and the federal immigration system to help people stabilize through the legal measures that we have in our laws.
Yeah, I think that the major pressing issue is getting the criminals out that are causing issues. That's the worst part of it.
Yeah.
In that realm, Ashley's asking, can we bring back mugshots? She says, protecting criminals need to stop. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we shouldn't be protecting criminals. It's a state law that the mugshots got removed from websites of jails, and that would be a law that would have to be undone. And it's a conversation that we should have among many other conversations around people who are navigating the justice system. But yeah, it just has to be rolled back, and there has to be evidence as to why it's needed. The protection of a criminal as far as a mugshot,
I mean, I'm not sure that I agree that it protects them, that it doesn't exist, because if they have a mugshot, they're probably in jail. But it's upon release that I'm frustrated by state law that doesn't provide adequate information and communication to victims when individuals are being released back into our community. In fact, I think the Department of Corrections is one of the biggest agencies that fail at protecting our community from when they are transitioning people back.
Is that latter part, is that something that you could have an effect on if you were governor?
Yeah,
Okay.
so through administrative rule making and partnership with the director of the Department of Corrections, you can implement all types of different types of rules and applications of systems. So state law is the minimum bar. You can create rules on top of that to elevate and be better at something. And we should definitely be better at doing a lot of things around reentry in our state.
Ashley's following up again with the CCC. She says they built Silver Falls State Park, the buildings, and Crater Lake. So along that line, what are some, like, here's a softball question, hopefully. What are some what are some beautiful places in Oregon that you want to brag about? Like when people ask you, if people visit the state, they're like, what's there to do in Oregon that's amazing? Like what are some things
Oh
you
my
brag about?
God.
And then what's something you tell them do not go to because it's a tourist trap?
A tourist trap. I don't think I've ever said don't go somewhere per se. Look, I travel a few times a year as a county commissioner because I sit on the National Board of Counties. In fact, I'm leaving next week to go to DC to lobby Congress, and I get to go on a tour of the West Wing, which I'm very excited about. But when I'm visiting with commissioners from other states, I invite them into Oregon, and depending on what their interests are, I can point them in a variety of directions. But the things that come to mind that are my most favorite, and this is not in any particular order, so hopefully no county commissioner gets mad at me. The Painted Hills over in Eastern Oregon, the Farm Loop or the Fruit Loop, which is in Hood River, big deal. Everybody should do it. Windsurfing in Hood River. If you like a good beer, you want to hang out with a microbrew, go to Full Sail and watch the windsurfing on the Columbia. If I'm going to head down to your end of the world, I would say Jacksonville is a really close. I love Western towns, and Jacksonville's got a cool history to it. Plus, it's a great wine country. Ashland has Immigrant Lake, which if you just want to chill in a low populated area and maybe take in the Shakespeare Festival and also hit the sun and some water, you can go do that. On the North Coast, I think everybody should do the Goonie tour. I think that is a total tourist trap and you should do it. And if you're going to go up to that neck of the woods, I think that you should go out to the pier and experience what it is to be on the Columbia that meets the Pacific Ocean, because that's a sight. And then on the, I love Lake County. Going to Silver Lake would be a great idea if you want to be really, really remote where there's like no people at all. And then let's see. I love Sisters. That's a tourist trap. It's very expensive and it's kind of lost some of its appeal as far as the Western. It's like gentrified. I don't love that, but it's still kind of cool. Yeah, I could literally probably go county by county and explain something you should do in every single community, because I have had the opportunity to be exposed to so much of it.
Another informal question. So if you had a superpower that would make all of this easier, governing, running your small business, everything, what would it be and how would you use it on a typical day as governor in San?
If I had a superpower, it'd be to fly. Because Oregon is a large geographical state, and I think that you should be in person when you govern in a space like this. You should lead presently, and in order to do that, I would have to physically fly because I would have to be all the places all the time. I've spent a lot of time on the road in the last year, and oh my gosh, I've tried to be in every community in every county, and it's just near impossible to do it all.
Well, that's like, we've had a Democrat governor for quite a while, and they pretty much just stay in the metropolitan areas because that's where they're familiar, that's their base, that's where they're welcome. And out here in these rural counties, these red counties, we don't get to meet with the governor. We don't get to have those conversations and influence anything that goes on. So I'm excited to someday have a Republican governor for the sheer fact that we would get to see them and talk to them and communicate with them, and our leaders will
Yeah.
too, right?
Yeah, I hope so.
There's hope for the future.
There
You've given
is.
us hope, Danielle. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the questions I had, and they're online. I know there's a couple more, but I was trying to keep this to an hour, and we're already 20 minutes over. So,
Yeah. People
did
can
you
reach
have
out to
anything
me.
else?
Yeah. So I'm going to be back down on March 14th, as I mentioned earlier, to do some kind of a forum or debate. I'm not exactly entirely sure what it is, but I plan to be down there. And then I'm going to be down in Curry County on the 16th and 17th for activities. So if people can't make the 14th, they can travel a little further south and catch me at different events that will be down there. You can, I'm going to be starting my own podcast actually on Monday. It's called All the Things with Danielle Bethell. And I, at first, because I got to get a feel for kind of how these systems work, it'll be hard for me to take live questions, but people can email me questions and I will do my best to compile them and answer them during the podcast. And then as I get a little more tech savvy, which Chris, you might have to help me with at some point, I would love to be able to actively answer people's questions live during a podcast because I just love it. I'm not afraid to take the questions and navigate the information and just share who I am. I do want to do just quickly, because my phone's probably going to die, say this to your listeners. Oregon has never elected an executive in the governor's office, ever. Never anybody that's ever run a government before. They've either been always a legislator, or they were a judge, or they were a business owner. And I appreciate all of those individuals. But there is a fundamental difference between somebody who's running a government right now and feeling and navigating the systems that we live through, and somebody who's talking about it. I'm the underdog in this fight, in this primary as a candidate, and I need to earn as many votes as I can, and I need people to talk about me and invest in my campaign so I can be successful. I feel very good about being able to beat Tina. I have a very different skill set and lifestyle that makes me different. I'm attractive to moderates when it comes to that election, and that's important to winning. So people should go to daniellebethellforgovernor.com and look me up and reach out, and I'll do my very best to be prompt in my response.
Yeah, and so the website's right below. And then also, I forgot to mention at the beginning of the show, but this QR code up in the upper left-hand corner actually goes to that website as well. And you've got a great website with a bunch of information there, so people should check that out. Yeah, well, that's it from me. Darlene says she can't wait until you win.
Thanks, Darlene. I hope so. God willing, God willing.
And I'm very excited for your podcast. That's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Impressed that you're doing that. It's not common.
Yeah.
So, well, thanks for being on. And yes, the March 14th we're planning a debate. We've got you, Ed Deal, and David Medina confirmed. And we're still working on Chris Dudley. It's like a maybe. And then Christine Drazen has a scheduling conflict, unfortunately. So we think that's the date. We're pretty sure. We're like 99% sure, but there might be a potential that we change the date to try and get all 5 of you on the same stage, which would be most beneficial. So
all right.
Save the date.
Well, good luck.
But you're coming anyway. We'll do something for you no matter what on that date.
Yeah, I'm coming anyway. I'll be down there. I need a break. So if we don't do anything, you can come hang out with me in the pub and we can talk.
I would actually really like that.
I think
so anybody in the Coos, Curry, Douglas area, March 14th, Danielle will be in our area that whole weekend, I believe. So look out for some events coming from there. So thank you so much. Appreciate it. I know you're so busy, so giving us an hour and a half of your time is incredible.
My pleasure. It went fast. I love the questions. Thank you, everybody, for participating, and I look forward to meeting many more of you in person soon.
See you, Danielle.
Great. Take care. Bye-bye.